Josh over here. I think this is it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is it.
So you've got like Joker full suit with swim trunks, Batman full suit with swim trunks.
So good. We'll be at like a stoplight, and I'll just look back in my mirror, and I'll see somebody taking a picture of Godzilla chasing the little stick family, and I'm like, yes.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
So I'll start out with the interesting question this time, Dan.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
We need to do this first.
Oh.
Welcome to the ADHDan podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
The line?
it goes where it goes.
Yes. Yes.
I've been practicing that.
All right. It goes where it goes.
That's good. That's good.
So Dan, you and I met the first time at the Ebensburg prison, which is a really strange place for a first meeting, obviously.
Right.
How did you fall into the paranormal? Like, how did you just kind of like, you're like, I've got this camera, I'm going to just...
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of goes to just my story of I got into video in high school. I graduated in 2002. But no one ever told me that it could be a profession. So it was never, no one ever said, oh yeah, hey, you should try this route. Or it was like, go to college because that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But then I worked at various jobs, tried to, work my way up, and just one day had a breakdown, and my wife said, hey, you can't do this anymore. So I left. Spent like 3 months just absorbing as much as I could, learning from YouTube. I say that was my real college, even though I went to college.
Yeah.
Learned everything I could. And then I just realized that just capturing stories is what I really enjoy. And for so long it was weddings or just little things. And someone mentioned the ghost hunt to me, probably Syl. And I was like, I'm on board. Absolutely. I have to say though, I went into it. There are two parts. So I was skeptical, which I still have some questions about that. But, and then I was also coming into it thinking, I don't know anything about this. I don't watch ghost shows. I don't do anything like this.
Right.
Am I going to be able to use lights? Are they going to get upset with me putting the camera in their faces? Like, is this going to disrupt anything? So, yeah, those were some of my...
Sure. I mean, it's kind of a big deal, yeah. Most paranormal investigators, I mean, the ones that I've encountered, typically, we do video, but we don't do it on us. We do it, to catch something in hopes of catching something.
Right.
As far as, as I'm concerned, like Josh is used to being in the spotlight, and I don't like being in the spotlight. Even though I'm considered the gregarious one, I prefer to be alone. I'm also an empath. I'm like, I started there, like the pandemic has kind of brought some things to my attention. So I started therapy.
Same here.
And my therapist was like, so I want to recommend this book to you. I had to be very specific about my therapist. So when I called, the provider, I was like, listen, you can't give me to somebody who's going to be like, well, you need Jesus in your life, which that is great for quite a few people. But for me in particular, like I just, that wasn't going to be enough. That's not going to solve my problems. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm not considered neurotypical. And Josh, no. But, she, after talking with her, she's like, I want to recommend this book to you. And she's like, I really, she's like, a lot of people won't read books I recommend. I'm like, no, I'm the reader. I will do the reading. I'm halfway through the book and I'm reading. I'm just like, I really feel called out about this. Like I had to go through and highlight things. I'm like, I've done this my entire life and I didn't even know that's what it was. I hate wearing socks and shoes. It's an empath thing. I prefer being awake at night. I recharge in the silence when everybody else is asleep. And there were some other things that this therapist who wrote the book, she's also an empath, and she had pointed some things out, and I'm like, oh my God. Why has nobody pointed this out to me sooner? Like, there are so many things of my life so many events and so many moments that I'm looking back on going, oh my God, that was an empathic moment. I knew that I was empathic. Like I could feel and sense other people. I'm very good at reading very subtle changes in facial expressions. But some of the things that I was experiencing and have experienced that I couldn't really logically explain now is starting to make sense to me because of this book about being an empath. And I think part of that is simply just acknowledging every day that I am an empath, and to be true to that. And I need to become aware of what are my feelings and what is somebody else's feelings. What it is also sort of challenging for me is that because Josh Josh is gifted as well, and we do have a tendency to pull in the people who have passed in our lives, and I can feel their emotions. Like my dad likes to swing by. He swings by when my nieces and nephews are around, but there have been times in the past 2 years where he has shown up in a situation that was, incredibly emotionally challenging. And it was weird for me because I'm having my own emotional response to this event that's happening, and I feel it here where my heart is. But when my dad shows up, I feel his emotion, and it's dead center, like right on top of my diaphragm. And this is where your heart chakra is anyway. So his emotions are here in me, and then mine I experience over here. That's kind of the best way to describe it.
But you can distinguish.
I'm starting to be able to distinguish it. And then this new trick that two new things that I've been able to identify instead of just shrugging it off is like, I have a neurological disorder. So a lot of times I'll just shrug something off as, oh, that's just the neurological disorder. But in reality, it's not. And I'm like, oh, I need to stop shrugging that off and just face it. Like, that's part of me. I need to take a look at it and then utilize it how I feel that I'm supposed to be utilizing it. Mm-hmm. I feel that people who are gifted, there is a reason is, we are to help others.
And we talked about that briefly in the prison. I don't know if any of it's in the video, but I remember saying something along the lines of, we talked about younger kids, how they are more prone to see things or say they see or hear things, and adults say, no, it's nothing. Yeah. So then over the years you kind of suppress that. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is basically don't bury that, embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah. And children, from all of the research that I've, done, and from just talking to different people who have children who are gifted, it's way more common than people think it is. And parents are just so easily, influenced. Society tells us, oh, there's no such thing as ghosts, and if you see ghosts, then you're mentally ill, or, there's so much stigma relating to the metaphysical and the paranormal. And the experiences that we have with them. It's everybody's like, oh, it's paranormal, supernatural. And I actually think that the universe and and energies and spirits are constantly giving us signs and signals, and kind of like they give us little tidbits for us to follow, is kind of how I feel. I've always known I was different, from a very, very young age, whereas, and it was never really smothered because my maternal grandmother was a medium. We never had a word for it. We weren't Grandma's a medium. We're just Grandma sees things sometimes and weird things happen, know?
It's just Grandma.
Which is Grandma. It's yeah, it's Grandma. Grandma's I saw a coal miner come out of the bathroom the other day. I'm that's nice. So nobody really tried to suffocate that. Nobody did that. Whereas Josh's family was kind of the opposite. Even though I went to church, and I did Sunday school, Bible school, all this other stuff, none of it felt right. It just felt so like I'm parallel to the path I'm supposed to be on. So I'm on this path looking at the other path going, but I want to be over there, because this path I'm not moving right on this path. I need to switch to this one. When I finally just started to accept me and all my quirkiness and who I am, I was like, okay, now I'm on this path. So now what? I guess I'm just going to see where it takes me. I don't like to lay pavement down on my life path because life happens while you're making other plans. So I kind of just roll with it.
I've said that many times to a lot of other people, that life happens when you're making other plans. And it resonates with so many people. And I think was it John Lennon?
I think John Lennon said it.
I don't know. Somebody more famous than us.
Right.
Yeah. But Josh's experience with his gifts were different.
Before we get into your gifts,
Okay.
I want to give you something.
Well, I want you to open your thing too.
Okay.
I stopped wrapping these because I like getting the reaction from it.
Right.
So yes, if you're just now tuning in, or if you skip to this part, I'm with Kelly and Josh Lundgren.
You got it.
Okay.
100%. At least that's what they tell me it's pronounced. I could be pronouncing it wrong. I don't know.
You should do it like Lundgren.
Lundgren.
Yeah, I like that.
Put a little bit of German oomph in there, even
Right.
though it's Swedish, but whatever, close enough.
I don't get asked as much if I'm related to Dolph Lundgren, which is good. And I said no, I'm not. And just doing research and the name, and just from what the research that I have done, is that the name Lundgren over in Sweden, it's about as popular as the name Smith over here. So yes, maybe, I don't know. I'm not getting any checks.
Right.
That's all I know.
Right.
I mean, but I like to say Uncle Dolph, who, was He-Man and the Russian and Rocky 3, 4, I don't know.
Dang, I should have put that on here. Dolph. Okay, so here's your name plaque, your keepsake.
Oh.
So
Nice.
I have a story behind this.
That's fantastic.
That's so cool.
So I actually painted this when I was like in 8th or 9th grade.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
I'm not claiming to be a professional painter, but I painted that, and when I was trying to think of something to give you guys, this was the first thing that popped into my head, and I was like, I'll just put their names on it.
That's brilliant. We love it. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That is
where
wonderful.
Can we put this?
I mean,
Ooh, we can put it in the curio cabinet. We can put Ash and the Joker next to it.
we have a curio cabinet with all of our random collectibles and things like that, because I'm a huge fan of Mega Man, from the old video game Mega Man. So,
Okay. I think I had the original one for Game Boy.
yeah, there was like the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy. I mean, there was a bunch of games that came out, but original Nintendo is where I pretty much fell in love with the series, and I've collected various Mega Man stuff, and I have. So somewhere along the line, there was a Mega Man energy drink, the E-Tank. If you remember in the game, the E-Tanks were the like the power-ups in it. So they have an energy drink of an E-Tank. I have that. So that's one of my nerdy things that I love. And I have the blaster from the Mega Man blaster. I got it for my birthday one year.
Oh, I like that.
It covers his whole arm. It's great. He just walks around the house. Pew, pew, pew. The dog loses their mind.
Scares the dog. It's fantastic.
Daddy, no.
There's some YouTube content.
Our dog is so weird.
Put like a GoPro right down there so you can see where it's like
Right?
like first person.
Oh, man. That's fantastic.
Just see her big eyes.
That's what I like to say.
I like that.
Tell I want to hear your version of how
did things start with me?
how did because I mean I know, but
I know. So basically, when I was a child, I saw things that it scared the hell out of me. And the only thing I can really equivalent it to now is shadow people. So I'd be laying in bed, and so my brother and I shared a room. I have an older brother who doesn't have as much of the gifts as I do, but he sort of does, but he believes me when I tell him the things that I say. So in the place that
Is he older or younger?
Older.
Okay.
By 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
3 years older. So that's it. I just have an older brother. That's it. And we shared a room growing up, and there was a hallway that just like went out, and there were many times, and I can still imagine this, is that I saw what I thought were like a shadowy figure walking down the hallway, and then I'd look or like really focus on it, and I just see like dive into the shadows, or I would see something and just like it'd fall into the shadows, and it was just, it scares me. It scared the hell out of me because I was under 10, because it was before we, when I was 10, we moved to a different house, and it was in the old place. So that's kind of where it started, and I was like, okay, I'm just, and your parents say things like, oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what kind of response did you get when you told people, if you told people?
Well, mostly I told my parents, and which I think naturally any kid would do. And my parents only said, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's no big deal. It's just your imagination. It's just nothing else. And I thought, well, that's okay. Really, from there, we, as I said, when I was 10 years old, we moved into a new place. That house was built
1930 or something.
So now it's 100 years old.
Yeah.
But anyway, old house back then. Even then. So basically, I was 13, 12, somewhere around that range. And we had, essentially, there was the staircase that went up to the second floor. There was a landing and then a turnaround, and then it was like an L shape that went into the master bedroom. So it was like there was 3-bedroom house on top of the 3 bedrooms. And then, point is, one day, handprints appeared on the top landing. Now, these were handprints of a kid, maybe in the realm of like somebody that was much younger than my brother or I, which he was, I was probably like 13, he was probably like 16. So it was something like, it was not anything that was our handprints or any friends that we knew. When
you say they appeared, was it like in dust, or was it like dirt, or?
It was just that. It was like, it was like a dirty handprint. Like a little kid, basically the way I can describe it as a little kid ran up the steps, tripped on the top step, and just like caught himself on, I say himself, herself, I don't know. But there's 2 handprints, like somebody stopped themselves from falling or catching themselves from completely falling over. But they were dirty handprints. And then as you went down the hallway, there were more handprints. Like, again, a little kid just like going along the wall, just like, being crazy. And then it went all the way down the hallway into the master bedroom, and then they were on the ceiling. And my mom was actually the one who was like, hey, did any young kids come over recently?
So like, she saw them.
Everybody saw it. It was clear as day. It wasn't anything that you had, you couldn't deny it. It was no more different than anything on this table, any dust that you see. I mean, it was as real as anything. And so, yeah, when I saw the handprints on the ceiling, I was like, well, that's not natural. So, kind of freaked me out, kind of freaked my mom out. And so she was really trying to discern, like, are you kids playing a joke on me? Like, what's going on here? Are you just being prankful teenagers? Which, I mean, we were, but not like that. I mean, that's ingenious. So, eventually what happened was my mom just kept brushing it off because I think she didn't want to scare us, because she's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And then one day, they were gone. And I asked my mom, I was like, what happened? Did you wash the walls, or what'd you do? And she's like, no, I didn't. I just prayed. I prayed a lot and asked for Jesus to help. And then they went away. What it was, where it came from, where it went to, no idea. No idea. It's not like I ever felt threatened in that house. But there was definitely...
You're being watched.
Watched. We weren't the only ones in the house.
Yeah, co-inhabiting. Is that a word?
Yeah, co-inhabiting. That's really the best way to describe it, yeah.
Like the others.
The others, yeah.
That's another funny story about we watched that movie in the theater, and
We took one of our best friends.
hold on a second.
Oh,
We'll circle back to
Sorry,
the movie.
it's so
'cause-
Yeah, and I have a question about the movie too.
yeah. But anyway, the point is that always felt like there was something being watched. And I had this feeling my entire life. Like, I don't know, for some reason, I always said, I had this feeling like, all right, there's something over there. There's something in that corner. I have no idea what it is. There's something in there. But my parents were always spiritual in the fact of, like, we went to church all the time. And so believing in spirits and other realms was not outside of the conversation that we had in our household. And my mother always said, like, oh, your loved ones are always with you. Like, all of your past family is always close by. You never have to look too far to find them. So the fact that I maybe felt, no, and I don't want to say maybe, I actually did. Like, I could pinpoint and be like, there's something over there. I don't know what it is. It's just watching. And that was something that I thought everybody could do. I had no idea. That wasn't just like a innate thing people could do until it wasn't that long ago, actually. It was
Yeah.
when
What, maybe 8 years ago?
it was around what I like to think of myself as just opening up to this entire side of things. So for many, many years, ever since I was a child, I suppressed a lot of things just because seeing shadow people scared the hell out of me. Seeing something that doesn't exist and then looking and be like, okay, it's not there, but I know I saw it. And people saying like, oh yeah, shadow people are real. I'm like, well, yeah, and I never was attacked or anything like that. So it wasn't anything that I have direct threat over, but not seeing anything like tangible, it scared the hell out of me. It still scares the hell out of me. And I don't want to say that I'm like 100% tapped in, but I'm definitely more interested in it. And it wasn't until around 8 years ago that we'd met up with some, Kelly actually just started working with someone who essentially mentored us. And it was an individual that opened my eyes, at least, to this whole thing. Because for the longest time, I'm like, whatever, this is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. It's a bunch of implanted things. And it wasn't until my uncle, he passed away. And Kelly was working with this individual. And it wasn't until I went there and was like, hey, my uncle passed away. And then she basically told me about my uncle. And now, this is stuff that I would know. She even said some stuff I didn't know. Because she's referenced a few things where I'm like, I don't know. And eventually, it was my mother's brother. So I went and I called my mom. And I was like, hey, Mom, did Uncle John ever talk about like issues with his foot or anything like that? And she was like, oh, yeah, he had surgery and he had problems with it for so long. And he didn't talk about it, but why do you ask? And so I explained the whole situation, and she was like, no, that's real. So basically that was kind of like oh, damn, you told me things that even I don't know. So there is no possible way that this could be some kind of smoke and mirrors. Like, maybe there is something to this. And so that kind of turned things around for me. And I've had situations where I've experienced I don't want to say voices in my head. I sound like a crazy person. But experience things like
The foreign thoughts, is that what you're talking about?
yeah.
Those are really hard to explain.
That is hard. And this is the only way I can explain it is I call them foreign thoughts, because these are thoughts and things that I would have zero consideration of, because it's part of our day-to-day life. So mostly what happens is I'll be kind of in that spot where you're laying down in bed and it's right before you fall asleep.
The twilight. I call it the twilight.
It's the easiest way. It's the only way that we describe it. You're almost awake and you're almost asleep. You're just in that gray. Kel and I, we equivalate it to, it's the twilight of the sleep cycle. So you're not quite in one or the other. You're kind of 1 foot in each realm. And I've had these thoughts, and it's the weirdest thought in the world, because it feels like something that is my own. And like, I remember the first one, and it was, what is sleep? you were a creature or a being that never required sleep, how would you explain sleep to something that doesn't require it? And for me, it's like, that is such a mind-blowing concept, because it's like, oh, well, it's something we all do. Everything. From animals to plants to people. I mean, everything sleeps. If it's alive, it sleeps. And so to have this thought of like, what is this exactly? It blew me away, because it's hard to describe, because it's like this thought entered my mind, and it's just like, it wasn't a normal train of thought where you go, okay, think of this and this and this and this and this and this, and that's how I got here. It was just like, I'm trying to fall asleep, and then it's like, what is sleep? Okay, we're just gonna do this now. So I've had, and there's really no answer to it. I mean, we all know the answer, but it's like, how do you get there? How do you know when you're done? What happens when you're in sleep? Where do you go in your dreams? And it's like, there's all these kind of other questions that kind of lead into, and in my mind, I was just trying to answer these as best as possible. And I'm like, okay, that was weird.
One of the things that I think about sometimes is, what if that your dreams are the reality, and this is, like, you're just in different states. Mm-hmm. So what makes that not real?
It's like another plane of existence.
Yeah, yeah.
And just, yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with that either.
Like, that's, so, yeah, I get into a lot of that. Like, thinking just about sleep and consciousness. I'm actually talking with Nick a little bit about that, and that's just, yeah. That could be a
and that was
deep pull.
And that was just a crazy thing that I thought of, and I told Kelly about it, because I'm like, it wasn't really like my own idea. That's why I call it foreign thoughts, because it's like, this is something that's so natural for all of us. Why would you just even think about that? Like the thing about appendages, like, what are arms? What are legs? Why do they move? What are they, like, this is weird. Why can't you just like float to wherever you want? And that was another one. The other one I had was, why can't I transfer my consciousness into a separate entity? Such as, like, why can't I take my entire consciousness and transfer it to Kelly's body, or like switch bodies, or even switch it from to a dog or a cat or a bird.
There's a conspiracy about that people out there are able to do that.
Mm-hmm. That it was just more like a, what do you mean you can't do that? You're trapped inside of this meat bag for the whole time? That sucks. Mm-hmm. Like, that was really the thought. Like, what do you mean you can't do that? That's dumb. Mm-hmm. Like, I can do that. You're stuck in that meat bag.
I mean, I guess when you die, this body,
right,
the energy that is your consciousness does carry on to something else. So I guess in a way, we all do.
Yeah, and I think it does get there eventually. Is that, we are stuck in this thing, but something that Kel and I have talked about, and I agree 100%, is that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, or even just a living experience, if you would want to say that. And that really is what it boils down to, is this is just like a bus ride or something. It's just a temporary thing, and then you learn. It's like a crash course in a lot of things, in that what we go through and the experiences that we have is an overarching lesson, and that sometimes things that we go through are actually for the event of somebody else. I thoroughly believe, my brother and I have said that we've had, my father wasn't exactly the greatest growing up. Now, I've made amends with him since, but my brother and I have both said that he is a prime example of what not to do. So I also believe it's his own struggle to deal with these kind of things, but it was a hard lesson for my brother and I to be like, it's not a good idea. Let's not do that. So we've definitely made those choices and learned from that. However, the point is that everything you do and everything that happens to you isn't always...
It's not about you.
It's not to you, it's for you. So just because it happens, I don't want to say it happens to you, it happens for you, is what it really boils down to. And it may not be directly for you, it may be for someone else. And this experience that I'm having is so that the next generation or this individual, I can help them with my experiences, or mentoring them in ways that I can't even fathom. There was it 2 jobs ago, actually, there was a girl that worked there that I'd talked to. She was a young girl, fresh out of high school, didn't really have much direction in life, and just, we worked a couple of years together and just have conversations about life and everything like that. And I would talk to her and just say, you know what, you got to try to give her some type of dad advice, I guess you could say, or some kind of a mentor of whatnot, or just my experiences in life, and just say, hey, this is where I went, this is what happened, this is what you can do with that information. And so a couple of years ago, she messaged me out of the blue, and she's like, I wanted to thank you because those talks we had inspired me to move forward, and now I'm getting my master's degree, and you're part of that, and I want to thank you for that. I was like, wow, I had no idea I was that kind of
Influence,
impact on somebody's life. And I mean, it's fantastic. It makes me feel good that I was able to do that and continue to do that. And just really try to express that knowledge of passing it on and just teaching. And that's what I really enjoy, which is way off topic from what we should be talking about.
No, but so within the past, actually around the beginning of the pandemic, I started just reaching out to people who I felt had an impact on my life and just sending them messages on Facebook. One was to a boss that I had in high school at a restaurant, and I messaged him this long thing just thanking him and how I feel like he was instrumental in making me who I am. And I sent it, and immediately I thought, that kind of reads like a suicide letter.
Oh, no.
So I immediately typed, I said, I hope this doesn't sound like a suicide letter. I apologize if it does. And I saw that he read it and he never responded. And I'm just like, I felt awkward. But I like the idea of reaching out to people and saying, hey, you know, regardless how long of a period of time you spent with those people, I think it's just, it really is a good way to make people feel good.
And it's, I'm always trying to improve, and I'm always trying to make myself better than I was the day before. But as far as learning all of this in this world that Kelly has dedicated her whole life to, and for the longest time we were together, and she's always been into this. Even since the day we met her, she said, I want to be a demonologist. And I thought, that's a weird profession. What exactly is that? Is that like a priest? Not really.
It didn't scare you off?
No, because at the time I was also, I was very angry at the world, and so was she. And that's pretty much what started us together, is just our anger kind of bonding us together. But we also had a lot of this other interests that were the same, very much the same art and music, movies, and those kinds of entertainment, and bonded us together, and just generally being silly together. That's pretty much the foundation of it all. But when she's like, I want to be a demonologist, I'm like, that's cool. I want to start my own company. And she's just like, that's cool. You do you. And so it just kind of moved forward from there. And then, it wasn't until like 8 years ago, which, I mean, if you think about it in a lifetime, I spent a long time running away from this. And it wasn't until recently that that Kelly was like, you know, you shouldn't run away from this. I'm like, yeah, but it's scary as hell. I remember it was one of the very first times. So I talked about the foreign thoughts and that whole concept. And something else that happened, are you thinking of Dana's Nana? Did that happen first, or was that Tim's dad?
No, it was Dana's Nana.
Dana.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
it was Nana.
one of Kelly's longtime friends, her grandmother passed away, and we went to the wedding.
Wedding. No.
Different ceremony.
There was almost a funeral at the wedding that I just shot.
Oh no.
The bride's veil caught on fire.
Oh my God!
And I was the first one to catch it. New Year's Eve. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, that's perfect right
Wow, that is.
Hilarious. That in itself is going to be a memorable wedding for everyone.
there. Yep. I have it from 2 camera angles.
Holy
So-
cow.
You gonna put that in the wedding video?
I maybe at the end. I think it would be funny. And they were great sports about it, but
Maybe just do like a 10-second clip with some heavy metal dubbed over it.
yeah.
So it really looks
yeah.
like a hardcore.
I like that.
Some people headbanging or something. Like cut in some stock footage of like.
Yeah.
You're like, the wheels are turning.
Yeah. I know a guy who can do that.
I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah, so
But-
there was
So the funeral that I was at and Kelly was at before. So anyway, we're there, and by this point, I was kind of a little bit tuned into things. Like, I was accepting the fact that I'm not like everybody else, and that I can sense different things that people may not necessarily normally sense. So I'm sitting there, and normally whenever I'm not, like if I get other information or things like that, I get dizzy. And it's almost like I'm falling forward. Like if I was, I don't even know how to describe it.
Tumbling forward.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's like you're tumbling forward, and that's the only way I can describe it. So I was feeling like that at the funeral, just because you have a room full of people thinking about the same individual that just passed away. So understandably so.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy directed.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, who's even an amateur in this situation, I'm like amateur ham radio at ground zero. So even my own shoddy equipment that I could still pick up something. So we're going through and giving the eulogy of everything. And at some point in the eulogy, whoever was giving it, I don't remember who it was exactly.
Oh, he was the priest of the
Was it
church
the
that she
priest?
went to, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was somebody that she knew.
No.
The point is, she says, well, you know,
He said, oh, she was a great lady.
yeah, exactly. It was like, she was a wonderful woman, mother, grandmother, blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I heard was. What do you mean was? And it wasn't my thoughts. It wasn't my... It did kind of ring through like in my own voice, but it wasn't something that I implemented. And it's such a hard line to draw. And I remember various people that I've talked to that have gotten information in the past. I'm like, how do you know? How do you know that this is not your thought process? And the only way I can discern it, and I've told Kelly this as well because she's kind of understands what I'm talking about, is that whenever you think about things, there's a train of thought of like, okay, I'm going to think about this, and then, okay, that gets me on that topic and this topic and that topic, and then it reminds me of this, so I'm way over here, and then I'm back over here, and, you know. Where this is almost like you're just like cut in, and the answer is received as fast as the question was answered. So it's almost like a bam bam, kind of like I'm thinking about this. So when I heard she was a great lady, and immediately was, what do you mean was? And I just kind of, it shocked me because it wasn't something that I didn't think about. And I never met.
Yeah, you never met Nana.
I never met her. And so eventually Kel and I did sit down with Dana.
Well, let me interject here for a minute. I'm sitting next to him, and he has his elbows on his knees and his head in his hands. And he is crying so hard I can literally hear his teardrops hit the floor. He went through 2 packets of tissues. He never met the woman. Never met her.
It's true.
And then in the car.
That's right.
Yeah.
'Cause the emotional impact, it was beyond anything that I was carrying it, but it wasn't anything that, like I said, I never met the lady. So really, it's no different than reading about an obituary that happened in the paper.
Right.
I had zero impact, but I felt the weight of sorrow. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, this person passed. It was the weight of, I'm not going to be with my friends and family any longer. I'm not going to be with
Dana.
Exactly. Family.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here for them.
So is that how you would define an empath? Or is this completely...
You would know that empath thing a little bit better than I would.
But if it's different, you can continue, and then I want to hear.
It is different, but it'd be better if he. So I had stood up. Dana, my friend, who I'm still friends with, easily one of my best friends, therapist, own practice, like just brilliant, really open-minded, just absolutely adore her.
You want to throw the name out?
Dana Stevens. She is in Pittsburgh. She does have her own practice.
Not that anyone will actually see.
Oh no, I totally will. I'll just be like, Dana, watch this. She's like doing it. I know she will. She's great.
She'll share it with everybody.
Like
this little clip here.
I know. She's my go-to. Like if I'm really turning something over, she is my go-to. I'm like, because I know she's got the brain power. We've known each other since 4th grade, but my parents actually almost adopted her. Her parents, she's the middle out of 5 kids, and while she and the rest of us were at band camp in high school, her parents packed the house up and moved themselves and their other 4 children to Maine and left her behind. So her Nana was like, no. So she took Dana in, but my parents actually sat down when they found out the situation and said, hey, how do you guys feel about us possibly adopting Dana? And I'm like, well, I obviously have no problem with this because she's one of my best friends. We really didn't have the space because I told you, I said I'm the oldest out of 4. Mm-hmm. We lived in a 2-bedroom trailer, so literally all 4 of us are packed in one bedroom. And those bedrooms are 10 by 10. So like very, very crunched, but family unit. Anyway, Dana, she's like, oh yeah, here's the luncheon, and everything. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to the luncheon. We get in the car and I looked at Josh. I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, why were you crying? What's going on? And he's all like, so here's some things I need to tell you. He tells me this. And then as he's telling me some of this information, he's like, I don't know why. He says, but whoever came to get her when she passed, he's like, I'm getting brother, but not brother. He's like, I don't get it. As soon as he said it, I was like,
it was like a male figure that came to her when she passed away. It was like some individual that you thought of as just like a brother type relationship with. So it was more than just like we're acquaintances. It's like I see you on like a sibling level kind of thing. And so yeah, we ended up
he tells me this in the car, and when he tells me this, I'm just like, there's literally no way you could know what I know about this situation. I am not going to tell you anything. I want Dana to tell you what you just found out.
Right.
And I didn't go to her directly and say, oh, hey, Dana, Josh, they'll tell her the whole situation. I kind of snuck it in and was like, Dana, I was telling Josh about, your cousin, I can't remember what his name is now. But here's the thing is, and she's like, Uncle, I can't remember what his name is now. I feel terrible. Oh, Uncle blah. And I go, yeah, tell Josh about him. So she goes into the story, and of course Josh is, he's like, okay, I'm interested. I want to hear what's going on. Nana, which I'm always going to call her Nana. Nana had a sister who passed away when they were children. So she then became an only child. And she had a cousin male cousin who lived real close. And they just kind of bonded like siblings. And they were best friends. They just palled around and people in the town thought that they were siblings. So when Nana had her kids and grandkids, everybody just called him Uncle. oh, Uncle so-and-so, Uncle so-and-so. So even though he was their cousin, everybody called him Uncle because they were so close together.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew this story. You know, I grew up with Dana, so I'm aware of this story.
Right.
And she's now telling Josh the story, and I'm watching, you know, obviously I know that face very well, you know, but I'm watching like this horror, shock, and like just utter amazement wash over his face. Like he's got like there's a panic that he gets in his eyes, and he's trying to like keep like the stoic face, but I can see like the little tiny, like the oh my god lines, or the I'm trying not to freak out lines. You know,
So it was at that point you were like, sold. I completely bought in.
Yeah, because at this point it was kind of like, I'm a very logical person. I try to debunk a lot of things, and for the longest time I was trying to debunk all of this stuff. But it's like, at that point, logic was out the window, because it's like, no, you can't deny this. You can't deny what you experienced. It's just impossible. There's no way I knew any of this information. This is something that was just totally, I can't deny it. So at that point I was like, all right, it is what it is. And I've still scared very much, and it still does. It's so hard to explain, because the logic side of me wants to debunk all of this. Mm-hmm. And there's sometimes where I'm just like, all right, I just can't explain it. So it is, I can't deny my own experiences. And that's really what I fall back to, is like my own experiences I can't deny.
It's it's probably just because you're
we're both sensitive,
open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Also,
Yeah.
I think you're not trying to
Correct.
say,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's something kids do, like
Yeah.
you said earlier.
Yeah. Would you open your gift from us?
Where?
I don't know. Where did you put it? It's that little black long box.
It's like a jewelry box.
Yeah, like a. Oh, it's right
I don't
here.
think you
It was on the
gave it
table.
Oh,
to
it's
me.
right here. It's right here. So there's a little tab, because, and it's probably
There's
all
a
mixed
tab.
up. But
It's called tape.
it's called tape.
I mean,
Thanks for your sarcasm.
It is a second language.
Yeah. I figure you give people things, and I thought this would be a nice little memorabilia, because it's going to be cool.
ooh. I still have
The tourmaline?
I think so, that you gave me before.
Yeah.
Hold
Yeah.
on. They
So
all
this-
moved.
Oh, they probably did, yes.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, they did move. Okay, so let me reorganize these here.
So now he's taking a picture so that he can always identify him.
Correct. Correct.
Well, there are ways to identify. So I'm sure you're familiar with amethyst. It's a pretty common stone. This is a citrine, which is good for healing, and not just like physical healing, but just like an overall general. Now, so the rose quartz, people think they're like, stones, or crystals, I should say, but stones as well. They're like, that's a bunch of bogus. And that's fine. You can believe whatever you believe. But my theory is, we all vibrate. All living matter vibrates at a certain vibration, and that's how we basically sustain our movement through time in the physical realm. And the same goes for really for anything material.
Right, yeah, all molecules are
Vibrating.
Yeah,
yes.
they're moving.
And they've yeah, correct. And everything vibrates at different frequencies. And some of the things that I've read in my own personal experience is that it's not so much that the crystals give off the energy as it is that they attract the energy for us to use. So rose quartz is typically used for love. And that's not just like, people are like, oh, like a love, potion or spell. Mm-hmm. No, it's actually, it's for like a lot of self-love, accepting yourself, being comfortable with who you are. The gold stone, interesting story about the gold stone is this is actually, this little guy here is the product of medieval monks trying to find the alchemical pieces of how to make gold, and instead they made this thing called goldstone.
Right.
And this is probably one of our big staples in our house, are goldstones. Mm-hmm. And it comes in this color, and I have one too. I have my green one. They come in like a dark blue.
But they're always that sparkly.
Kinda. And for this one, it's copper. This is copper in there, and this is glass. It's actually glass. But this was it's several hundred years old. Monks were like, hey, let's see if we can find out gold. And they made this gold stone. But it's really good for anxiety.
I was going to ask what each one is for,
It's
too.
very good for anxiety. So Josh gets dizzy, and I do too as well whenever there's strong energy around. And this helps sort of keep that dizziness away. And it's also good for anxiety, because it's... And for me personally, like when I hold my little flat green one, it's just really, it's me focusing the anxiety on me touching the stone. And also if I look at it, I can go into the depths of like the sparkles, and that kind of helps push the anxiety or the nervousness away so that I can just focus on this.
It's to me, it sounds like it's bringing like balance. It's because it seems like you'll go too far either way, and it'll just kind of get rid of that anxiety and just help you to
it kind of helps narrow things down. Well, the one that we own is probably about
the size of your fist.
It's about the size of my fist. Yeah, it's a good burglar deterrent. Yeah, citrine's fantastic. It's good for people who are natural healers or people who need to do some healing. It draws healing energy, and amethyst is just a really, really good stone in general to have. It's multi-purpose. It's good for protection. It's good for headaches. It's good to help with sleep. The clear quartz is think of it like an amplifier. It's so if you put a clear quartz with the amethyst, it's going to help amplify the energy with that. So clear quartz is good for that. And then, of course, the tourmaline is like one of my like staple stones, and I give this to pretty much anybody. Tourmaline helps protect against dark energy, and dark energy can be people's just their natural aura. It can be dark spirits. It can be just anything negative. Take it to work. There's people who will take a big chunk and just keep it at work because of the drama at work. It helps keep that negativity away. It takes your negativity away. But it also helps with, whenever we do the prison, it's going to help kind of repel any type of negative energy that maybe we're dealing with. Obviously, the bigger the better. Mine's pretty sizable. It's pretty big. I take that with me quite a few places, actually, but I feel that this is like a good starter pack for people.
The Lundgren.
The Lundgren starter pack, yeah. Just to kind of start you on like a little journey. Just watch out for rabbit holes, because those bastards are tricky.
And that's I would say that's my middle name, but it's not. I paid big bucks for my middle name.
So like this is a good starter pack, but definitely like if you want to know more about it, type in like rose quartz, metaphysical properties, or spiritual properties, or whatever you want to do. And that'll kind of help you figure out what you want to do with them, because there are people who, like me, I just keep mine in my pocket for certain things. But there are people who make grids, people who you can do what's called programming your crystal. It's also important to cleanse them, because some of them do absorb too much energy, and they do need cleansed and recharged. Typically, we like to charge ours in the full moon. But there's a lot of all of these, except for the tourmaline, you can get wet. Don't get the tourmaline wet, because it'll kind of dissolve and deteriorate. Now, as you can see, Josh has his selenite.
I have this guy. That's.
Can I touch it?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
So we definitely can't get that wet. That will just completely dissolve.
Let's
think of that as like an amplifier. Like
selenite.
But is that similar to the quartz here then?
No.
Because you said that was similar.
That's clear quartz.
That's clear quartz. That's a selenite.
Yeah, selenite is actually a mineral.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
essentially
what I use it for is just, I want to think of it like it's an amplifier, essentially.
An antenna.
So it can help bring things in to communicate, or it can help
fine tune information.
things.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you're at the Masonic Temple. I mean, for some reason.
That might happen. I don't know.
And you kind of felt something,
Mm-hmm.
an energy. Having this with you, you're saying would amplify that energy?
It more or less amplifies my abilities. So it's almost like I guess caffeinated would be the equivalent. So if you go uncaffeinated versus having this with you, you're a little caffeinated. So you're a little more jazzed up, or just in tune.
Your senses
Yeah.
a little heightened.
Yeah.
Something that you may barely hear, you would hear a little bit better, or maybe you get even more information beyond just a feeling. I mean, I've gotten just feelings before in the past too, where it's overall like, there was something that happened at the jail, actually. I don't think you were around for that. You were in a different part of the jail at that particular time, but there was, it was Kelly J and I were down in the main room, and I had gotten information about a guy that basically he felt like he had passed away in the jail, but he also felt like he couldn't move beyond the jail. Like he still didn't serve enough time. Like it was time to go, and he just felt like, no, I can't. I got to stay here. This is what I got to do. This is my penance. And I don't remember exactly. Did we ever figure out why? I don't remember.
No, is this the one that?
It was the first time we went to the jail.
Oh, okay.
And it was you, Jay, and I at the table.
Was that the individual who caught his wife cheating? Is that the one you're thinking? Is that what?
Yeah. That was it. So I just kept getting this vision of like walking in on somebody and just like going into a blind rage and just like killing both of them. And that was, I mean, I have zero intention of doing that personally, but it's
I think
just,
Eminem did it in a song.
Blind rage, going and killing somebody.
Right, right.
Yeah,
actually,
caught his girlfriend or something. And
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
It was on the first album. Yeah, I'm familiar. Anyway, I'm not really a big Eminem fan.
Same. I mean, I respect him for what he does.
But I believe there were a couple of songs about killing his ex.
Yeah, walking in on something. But
Anyway, the impression that I got from this particular when I was at the jail, that somebody basically walked in on the spouse having an affair and killed both of them and went to jail for it and died in jail, and never really got over the fact that they did their time and that they felt like they couldn't leave. They were still in the jail because the regret of murdering somebody you essentially love was too heavy for that individual. And that was... Again, I mean, it's scary to think about because it's like, that's a rather weird story. We tried to verify it and I don't think we found anything.
Yeah, it
as
didn't
far as,
really pan out.
It wasn't really any, it was kind of in the prison scene, it's kind of a run-of-the-mill case. So
Yeah.
it wasn't anything that was like, somebody of notoriety in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't, I don't know, it just, I don't know, like lost in I'm sure it's somewhere in there,
Right.
some of the records, but we just never really got anything. But that's about it. But it is as real as talking to you. Is this information that I receive is just like, because I'll just sit and I'll think and I'll just focus on a question of like, why are you here? What are you doing? And when I get that answer as fast as it hits, like as soon as I ask the question, I get an answer. I know that's not something that I thought of. And that's how kind of progresses. And then I'll just relay that to Kelly or whoever I'm with.
Mhm.
And then they'll ask me another question and I'll think about that. And that's essentially kind of how I get things. But I'm not to a point to where it's like full blown conversations of just
Right.
like, it was a midsummer day. And
Right.
this, like,
But that's something that I think you could probably fine tune and keep working and develop that skill
right.
and gift.
I mean, it is a skill as much as a gift. I mean,
Right.
is it any more? It's like saying, somebody who plays music, is it a gift? Is it a skill? Or even somebody who can be an illustrator. Any of those things. I kind of think of everybody has these underlying things. It's almost like a I've tried to tell Kelly, it's like an equalizer. Sometimes people start out, it's higher than somebody else's, but everyone has the same equalizer that they could adjust and move and tap into those abilities. So I believe anybody can do what I do and even beyond. It's just whether you want to do it and how far do you have to go to get to that level. And some people just naturally start at a higher level. No, it's fine. It's fine.
So I think we talked a lot about just the gifts, the developing those and experiences that you've had. Let's talk. I want to know about how you kind of go about planning for something for one of our hunts.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about the Masonic Temple, which we got the hookup.
Yeah, I'm really excited about
and
that.
And the video. And
yeah, that's completely insane. And that's something that I'm looking forward to as well. But essentially, how do you prepare?
I mean...
Get your proton pack ready.
Get my proton pack
or is that even a thing? Do you kind of try to cleanse yourself before?
Yeah, there is a routine. I don't say a routine or ritual, but there are definitely things. I try probably for the week ahead of time, sort of meditate or think upon where it is we're going, so that if my spirit guides want to prepare me for something, or they feel that something is going to happen, that I may need something extra. So typically, I'll meditate or think about it. Sometimes I have to, I brought a book with me, a notebook, because sometimes writing helps. I told Josh last night, I said, sometimes the thoughts are when you make Jell-O, you get it's all that hot water and everything's just melting. That's what's going on up here. But when I write things down, it becomes this solidified Jell-O. It becomes tangible, and I can okay, so that's what's going on up here. What do I need to do to prepare for that? Typically, I will definitely do a saging. Typically, I try to do white sage, but again, dragon's blood is pretty awesome and it smells nice.
Which actually,
I was going to say, I think it died.
Gonna refresh.
But I have a bar of soap that has sea salt in it. And sea salt, so salt in general, is an absorbent. It is, salt only absorbs. It does not give any energy out, which is why you'll see or hear about people say, oh, put a salt line down, put a blah, blah, salt. It has to be sea salt. It's that whole... There's a whole story behind that, because I was like, why does it have to be sea salt? Why can't it just be table salt? And then I had to go, find that rabbit hole, and oh my God. They're all connected. The further you go down, it's boy, how far does this rabbit hole go? Wait, this isn't the rabbit hole I started in. How did I get here? What's going on? What's my name? It's it's crazy. But yeah, I definitely, I wash, I take a shower with the salt, because that's going to take away any energy that maybe I've collected over the past, couple days or whenever. That helps get rid of that. And then the smudging or the smoke cleansing, that helps also kind of get rid of anything that may be lingering or kind of attached to you, because every day we are exposed to everybody else's energies. Everybody's energies, and we don't realize how much we take on until maybe we get sick, or just having mood issues or things like that. But yeah, I definitely have a routine, and I definitely beforehand, I always ask my my past relatives, just watch over me and help me help some an energy or energies if that's what they want. And then I ask my spirit guides, point me to where I need to be or need to go. And I just thank everybody, my spirit guides and my, my past, friends and family. if just, for their guidance and their love, and, to let me help wherever I can, however I can. Because ghost hunting for me, like people say ghost hunting, I actually don't like that term. Because like hunting to me sounds aggressive, and I'm not an aggressive ghost hunter. I do investigations. And if I know that we're going into a location that, like the jail, for example, where it housed criminals, people always it's like, well, you may, they're a criminal. Poof, you're painted. That's it. You can't change your colors. Not true. So when we went into that jail, I came in with compassion. Because they were human beings. They made mistakes. You made the wrong choice. You succumbed to your human emotions, some of them. That makes you still human. And Josh's encounter with that particular individual, I think you said his name was William, if I remember that correctly, but
sounds familiar.
Yeah. And it's just, you guys have to remember, this was a human being who knows that they did something wrong, and they regret it, and they served their time in the corporeal realm, and now they're just an energy, and you don't need to be here anymore. Your that physical being that you were is no longer required to serve that time. It's time for you to move on to the other side, so that you can make the choice of, do you want to be incarnated? Do you want to stay behind? Do you want to guide? Do you want to, and I think that's part of my empathic gifts, is that I feel that compassion for them. So many, people go in very aggressive into homes or buildings, or all these places, and they're really aggressive, and they wonder, oh, why did this thing follow me home? Why did I get hurt? Well, you walked into their house and you just completely disrespected them. Just because you can't physically interact with them doesn't mean that they're not capable of interacting with you, interacting with the things around you. I mean, essentially it's energy. I mean, if you had a room full of light sockets, you're just gonna you go around touching them all. Right. It's
well, and that's something that I think has really opened my mind to a lot of this, is watching videos and doing research on alternate dimensions. Because I think our reality is three-dimensional. Time is the fourth dimension. And then we can't see time, but it's happening.
Exactly.
So then what don't we understand about these other dimensions? And from what I hear, I think it's the eighth dimension is where it gets super crazy. But I don't know much more than that. I
mean, I'm still dealing with our 4 dimensions currently. That's enough for me right now.
Right.
I struggle in the physical realm. This was, whoo. I keep telling everybody, I'm like, look, I don't know why I incarnated again on this planet. I said, but I don't think I want to come back, because people are weird, and not in a fun, let's go play weird games kind of thing. No, scary weird. I'm going to jump off this, 60-story building for shiggles.
I don't believe in reality.
Yeah, I don't believe. Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
I think this is a simulation.
I do. You had
the
talked,
Matrix.
Right? You had talked about dreams earlier. And I'm a very prolific dreamer, and I don't dream like everybody else, because you'll hear people oh, I had a dream that I was in elementary school and I didn't have pants on, and for me that's weird. Whereas my dreams, one of my reoccurring dreams is when we have high winds. Well, now we live on top of a hill, and then we're surrounded by trees. So when we get these high winds, these massive several 100-year-old oak trees are groaning and creaking and squealing, and you can just hear all the wind come through the branches. It's a very big open sound. But every time that we get those high winds, if we still have high winds by the time I'm sleeping or going to sleep, I have dreams of giants. I've always dreamed of giants. As a child, I've dreamed of giants. I don't know why. Always dreamed of giants. But when it's windy, I dream of giants. I've had dreams. I just told somebody about this not too long ago, a couple years ago, where in one dream alone, I had witnessed a blue sun going supernova 3 times from 3 separate planets. The first planet I felt was Earth, and in that situation, Josh and I were looking at the blue sun going this is our last final moments, and him and I sat on a bench and we just waited for the end. And then I flashed to the second planet. And this particular planet, again, same blue sun going supernova. And I'm on this planet, and it's I don't want to say it's dark. So like remembering like the Earth crust was like a dark, maybe like a gunmetal gray, but there's these giant like I guess you could say just like giant crystals just jutting out of the earth. And, you know, I'm not essentially me, but I'm observing this. And it's like, this is the end. This is how it's supposed to be. And I let it happen. Flash forward to the third. Again, same blue sun going supernova. But this time, there is a war going on at the planet at the same time that the sun is going supernova. So you have half the planet or half the people going, you know, this is the circle of life. But, you know, this is what's supposed to happen. We are going to die with this planet as well as the sun. But then you have the other half of the people who are going, we have the technology to relocate ourselves to another planet and inhabit it safely and continue our life. So there is a war of the circle of life people who are going, no, trying to sabotage everybody leaving the planet. And then you get the people who want to leave the planet trying to fight back so people can leave the planet.
And that's becoming a reality with today's space race.
It is. And but this was a couple years ago. I had this dream.
And these are dreams.
These are my dreams.
This is not just going to school without pants on.
Yeah, no, this isn't like, oh, my teeth are loose, or like something normal that normal people have. Mm-hmm. No, I dream of a blue sun going supernova. You know, part of, I guess, being an empath is my dad has come to visit me in dreams, and I'm very aware I'm sleeping, he's dead, this is a dream. Very emotional, very big emotions when those situations happen. And a lot, like the first time he came to me in dreams, he had a very specific message. 3 times in a row he told me. And it was actually the year after he had passed away. He kept coming into my dream and he's going, Kelly, you need to have your mom needs to open those vents to the crawl space under the house because there's too much water in there. So 3 nights in a row, he kept telling me this in my dream. So the first night, I'm like, hey, Mom, I had this dream, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, that's weird. Second night, same dream. Next day, Mom, I had that same dream again. And she's like, huh, okay. Well, she goes and she's like, yeah, there is quite a bit of water under here. Third day, I get up, I'm like, for the love of God, Mom, just open the damn vents. I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of seeing them. Just do it. My dad does come to visit. He does play jokes. He's sometimes, probably a little over a month ago, Josh had fallen asleep on the couch. I had bent down to pick something up. And as I stood up, I was turning, and out of the corner of my eye, I see him standing by the couch where Josh is sleeping. And it's so fast, but I saw the red flannel shirt and the blue jeans, and he was the same height I was, and I'm like, oh, I was like, what? I hate when you do that. Like, I just hate. Or sometimes he'll visit and he'll come like at night, and it's at that twilight that we'll be in, and he's asleep in 5 minutes. It takes me about an hour and a half to like sleep, and he'll come and he'll like on the wall, like I'll have my back to the wall, and I'm like, and I always talk to him, not tonight, not tonight. Now, when him and I had separate rooms, because I'm a horrible person to sleep with, we would have, there's actually a portal in my bedroom. There's a portal in our bedroom. So we get random weird things that come through, like some really interesting, we've had some unique encounters in the bedroom, to say the least.
That makes it sound like we're into some freaky stuff.
I mean,
this isn't the Howard Stern podcast.
Yeah, no, that's no. That would be if we bring college up, but that's
that's a different day.
That's a different day. That's a different podcast.
I mean,
can you explain to me what you think is going on in that video, the surveillance video for the Masonic Temple?
So,
and I can play that over top of this.
So
too.
Crazy! It's so amazing. I've only ever seen handful of videos that have that very defined. It looks like an ectoplasmic manifestation, and those aren't for wimpy ghosts. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would be like, you know, a homeless person driving a Porsche. You know what I mean? Like, so whatever I believe, whatever it is that manifested that type of ectoplasm is probably powerful. Now, here's the thing. The Masonic Temple,
which in and of itself,
right, is a little shady, because I've heard things. I've heard and read, and
there are bones in there.
Oh, there are.
Yes, human bones.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna have a good time with this.
Better bring the big tourmaline out for that one.
Right?
And actually, the person who invited me, they have a skull at their house, a human skull. And I thought about asking him to bring that too. I mean,
wow.
Why
see
not?
what happens.
So the thing with I'm just going to leave out the whole Masonic Temple thing, because if that's the rabbit hole you want to go down,
right.
Have good luck with that. Just bring lots of water, maybe a flashlight.
The surveillance.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
We're just talking about this video.
yeah, it's just...
It's so bizarre how it just like goes in one direction and then a different direction.
Yeah, and
you're like,
and,
that's not real.
Yeah. So, and the thing too that I liked about it is it was reflecting that light so well, and you can kind of see like I don't. You may have to take a picture of this, because I can't. When words fail me, I have to draw.
Well, and I'll say this too. So the first thing, the skeptic in me, the logical, trying to find reason behind it. The first thing I did was went out to that room, because that's their front room where you walk in.
Right.
I'm looking up at the ceiling to see if there's anything reflective. So if headlights or something could have, hit up there and bounced down.
Absolutely.
There was nothing. And then the more I watched the video, it's like it just moved in pretty much a straight line, and then, like you said, it just kind of turns and moves. Like wasn't actually on the counter. It was like it was above it, because it would have dropped off the counter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was just
Yeah. And there's a part, there was the ectoplasm part that looked like a weird, like, squiggly rope, just kind of like it's at the mercy of crazy wind. But if you watch real close, it almost looks like it's got like a trail, or it's almost trying to form another piece of itself, because there's a part where it almost looks smoky, that it's kind of maybe forming something else, but it goes along just like and then it just kind of goes, it doesn't even fall off, it just moves itself off the desk, and it actually hovers there for a little bit. Now, something too that, and I probably have to look at this on a bigger monitor or screen or something, is to the left there's those double doors, and there's two windows, and in the room that the camera is in, there's a light that hangs right in front of that door. But as I'm looking at it, I think there may be, it looks to me like there may be somebody standing there, because you can see the light, but right behind it, you can kind of see like this little shadow kind of poking out.
See, I didn't even look anywhere else in the frame.
I look everywhere else.
I was just so laser focused.
How could you not just focus on that? Like,
well, that was like the first 5 times I watched it, and then I'm like, I need to see, because it's not uncommon for something to happen, for an event to happen in one location, and then have something similar correspond at the same time. That happens quite frequently in a lot of the some of the shows that I used to watch. One of the biggest game changers for me, as far as my paranormal, or my approach to the paranormal, was it was a show that was, I think it was in the mid-aughts. It's called Paranormal State. It's no longer running, but they were run out of State College, and
that was
Ryan Buell and Buell.
The girl was like friends with my friend group in Altoona.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Why can I not remember her name?
It's it's been a while since I've seen the show. That really changed my perspective on how to approach the paranormal, because they also went in with a I think there was at least one, but I think there may have been two that were psychology majors who, kind of screened for possible mental illness, because there is kind of a fine line between what's mental illness and what's paranormal, because it's not uncommon for people with mental illness to have to be gifted. Individuals who people are starting to see that. These kids and individuals with oh, come on, brain, what's autism, are often gifted, and they're in their own, the ones that are on the higher spectrum of being autistic are so in their own realm, in their own world. And you'll hear like grandparents or caretakers saying, oh, I saw them doing this or responding to that, and what is that about? And but you think, things of that nature. But go back to the video. That it is so crisp and so clear, and like Jen was saying, it does look ectoplasmic because it's so crisp and so clear and so defined. And the thing with the Masonic Temple, so there's bones there, which. That's yeah. But so
it's gonna be interesting.
These are individuals who are going in there, and they are doing essentially rituals, and rituals aren't all bad. There's rituals are as simple as Sunday dinners or praying. Yeah,
could be a ritual.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm actually having him on the podcast to talk about some of these Masonic legends,
okay.
Right.
But he has to check to see how much he can.
Right. He can disclose,
right?
Yeah.
Then you'll have the Illuminati on you, and
I told him he's not getting out of that question.
Mm-hmm. I have my suspicions too, because that's a deep rabbit hole. Let me tell you. But yeah, it's I really feel like and I think as humans, we definitely underestimate our own energy, our own powers. We when we do these rituals and when we pray or meditate, we are tapping into our higher selves, our powerful self, our energy self, and we don't give ourselves enough credit or believe that we are capable of creating portals. We, under certain amounts of stress or certain amounts of abuse, an individual can have their, I don't want to say their psyche or their soul shattered, but we can actually break a piece of our consciousness and our emotions off, and it can become a separate entity. You'll
right.
hear of like
there's
poltergeists,
but there's one in particular I'm thinking of.
You're thinking of Lizzie Borden.
So that is one thing about the Lizzie Borden case. Are you familiar with that one? I mean, I'm sure you've heard the whole nursery rhyme.
Right.
She killed her parents, but there is one school of thought is that when the event happened, when she murdered, I mean, I fully believe she did it. That's something I've researched a lot about, is that particular case I find super fascinating. But one of the things is that whenever, in my belief, Lizzie did kill her parents, that created such a traumatic event that it actually split off into its own energy, almost like a stain in the paranormal world. So that's really what you want to boil it down to, is that it just, such a horrific act becomes a stain on the metaphysical that is something that will permanently be there, even though the rest of her soul went on and regrets what eventually happened, but there's still that angry side that
it's
remains
still present.
stained and present in that particular household. And there was one of those shows
that I was watching, The Dead Files, I think.
Dead Files with
man,
what's her name?
Amy Allen. I love her.
She's the one who talks about that theory as well, and I'm like, that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
So it's a house I definitely want to go to. I'd love to go on the anniversary. That's my overall, like, I want to go on that day.
I think would it be more expensive than the prison that they were trying to get?
Oh my gosh. I couldn't. I
don't know.
So many issues with that prison situation. Not the prison, the asylum situation.
So many
issues.
I remember talking about that. That's not something I want to be a part of.
No.
Okay, so another question I kind of want each of you to kind of separately answer. I mean, you'll probably have some merging, but you are separate individuals. So what would you said you were raised like kind of Catholic?
No, Protestant, Presbyterian, yeah.
So how does all of this kind of fit with what you were taught when you were brought up? And then we'll go to you. So
so up until a certain point in my teenage years, I was very like, follow the rules, don't bend the rules. So I was, just to kind of fit in or at least feel like I fit in, it was like, oh yeah, church, let's do this. And I really love now I'm not saying that I don't believe in Jesus. I do believe in Jesus, actually. I think the things that he did teach, are profound. However, I do believe that we have been kept from a bigger truth, by him, from him, I just, the Vatican has an enormous library that they're hiding, or I'll say hiding, but nobody's allowed to go in there. So I really feel like they're hiding some big truths from us, keeping us from evolving spiritually so they can maintain control. That's my own theory. That's my own thing. But in church, none of it felt right. It just didn't feel right. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just, I'm like, this is nice. This is great. It's a great concept, but this is not for me. This doesn't feel right to me. Oddly, my parents were very just like, you do you. And towards the, like, I'd say probably 15 to 19, I wasn't very emotionally stable. And so I really rebelled hard, and really kind of pushed against the church. For a while, I was very atheist. I was like, this is a bunch of BS. This is all lies. This is all manipulation, just very anti, and even now I'm really, for me, organized religion is not the thing for me. I am somebody who I had to find my own path. And
would you agree that it's I would argue that it's because it feels like more of a business.
It does.
At this point.
It does, yeah.
It's not about the spirituality.
Yeah. I think it's in the movie Dogma. One of the characters says, that's what's terrible, but he's like, you mourn your religion. And that's the truth, and the thing that I have the problem, especially with the Catholic Church, is there's so much guilt. I only had one grandfather growing up, and he was a miserable man. And I think part of that was the church, because it was just feel guilty for breathing, feel guilty for being alive, feel guilty for just everything.
And give us money so you can be forgiven.
Yeah, which I think is a bunch of crap. And I really feel that people use religion to hide against, to hide their own prejudices and their own hatred, which I find really disturbing. And it's like, no, no, because Jesus essentially loved everybody. And if you can't get that through your head, that's your problem. And I'm just going to push you off to the side and move forward. But, my family just really was like, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not steering anybody wrong or just do you. So my mom grew up with it because her mom was a medium and my mom had her own experiences. She is a little bit empathic, but she's not as gifted as I don't say as gifted as I am, but we'll say not as complicated as I am. But my maternal grandmother was very just kind of like, yeah, just do your thing, blah, blah. Like she switched to Catholicism because my grandfather would only marry her if she was Catholic. Mm-hmm. So one side of the family was like, yeah, that's cool. The other side of the family, I just didn't talk about it. Because I just don't think it's something that they're very rooted in the here, now, and the material. Whereas I'm not, I guess you could say. I'm not. Like, I'm aware that there is things around us constantly, that there's communication constantly. I do believe that our spirit guides in the universe do try to Well, they do. They try to communicate with us through so many different mediums and ways. Like, I bet you have a reoccurring number that you see a lot.
I'm actually huge into numbers.
Or do you like numerology?
So, this is going deep.
This is going to derail before I get to give my answer.
We're going to dig our own rabbit hole.
Right? Okay.
As far back as I can remember, I've been a counter.
Okay.
I count steps. I always step with my left foot first because I want my right foot to be the even number when I step.
Okay.
I'll count letters in words, in sentences. I actually Googled it one time to see if anyone else does it, and there are people who count like that. And I actually found my people because there was an argument over, do you count the dot on the I, on a lowercase I, or not?
Oh.
And I do count it.
You count it as a separate entity?
Yes, because it's a separate mark.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see both sides, actually. But
I don't know, but like, look at the state of Michigan. There's 2 different peninsulas.
Well,
It's one state.
listen, this is... So, okay. That I don't want to go that deep yet.
right?
But then I'll count patterns on my fingers, like 4, 7, 9, 10. I'll count like 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. Like, I'll actually just
Do the move
kind of
in your
my
hand. Yeah.
patterns. In the one podcast I talked about my friend dying. He was 17. He died 3 years, 3 months, 3 days to the day before he would have turned 21. 2 plus 1, 3. And I feel like 3 is a very reoccurring number for me. And I always say it's because of the Blind Melon cover of 3 is the Magic Number, because I love that.
Yeah.
But it's a huge number for me.
3 is actually a very powerful number. Not just, in general, in several cultures and in religions, 3 is a very powerful, magical number. Even in Christianity, 3, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. I mean, that's the 3. 3 is a very, very big number. 3 is a big number in my life. I was born on the 3rd, December, and that's, 3 to 12, 76, 6 is a derivative of 3. I have 3 younger siblings. Josh is would have been my 3rd boyfriend. Like, we dated for 3 years. We got married. Like, 3, lots of 3s. But like reoccurring numbers. I'll give you an example. Like, our friend Jedediah, he's very, I think he's kind of new to like some of the things that like I bring up. He's a good sport about it. And I'll be like, oh yeah, reoccurring numbers. So, and he's like, I do get a reoccurring number. I'm like, well, what is it? He says, it's 1337. And I said, okay, well, why don't you keep track of it? So every time he sees 1337, he has to text me, 1337, 1337. And I picked up the pattern. I figured out what his 1337 is. And it's, it's... And I'm like, oh, yeah, and so he says, oh, 1337. I said, oh, big change is coming. He's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, that's what happens. I said, you get 1337, and there's a big change that happens. I said, when you came up 2 years ago to visit, 1337. I said, you got 1337. Right after that, you met your girlfriend. And I said, and then towards the end of the relationship, you got 1337. You and I said, you sent me 1337. I talked to you that day. As I was talking to him, his boss texted him and fired him. 1337. He got another 1337 shortly after that, and I said, another big change coming. And he met this this young woman, and he says, I need to talk to you now. And I'm like, all right, I don't have a life, call me. So he calls me, and he's like, so I just met you again. And I'm like, what? What? And he's like, this Jess girl that I've been talking to, he says, I met her, and it was like meeting you all over again. And I'm like, I'm sorry, because I was kind of a crazy lady back when you met me when I was 19. I was a little crazy. But he's like, the parts that aren't you are the other woman in my life. He's like, he just has a really bad time with women. So, you know, I love him in my own way, and his aunt loved him, and he says, what isn't you in her is my aunt in her. And he says, and I'm in this weird space with her where I'm so comfortable that it's weird. He's like, but it's so enjoyable because it's like, it's your energy and then some of my aunt's energy. And he says, I'm just so comfortable. And I said, well, it's the 1337 is pointing those out to me. And he says, you know, I think you're right. He says, yeah, 1337. He says, anytime I see it, I immediately have to text you. I'm like, I know. And then immediately after that, something big happens.
Yeah. And these are all,
it's recurring.
Like you were talking about before, how the universe kind of does give these signs and these directions, but we just need to be open to it.
Yeah. Well, so you had sent me that photo of the orb, the orb that you got. So, okay, just give me a minute, because sometimes I get information too. That's part of the empathy or empaths, and also my spirit guides kind of help with some of this. So you haven't nobody has died recently for you, but did somebody was real curious about what you were doing down here. Do you get a lot of noises? Do you get like do you find like coins or feathers at all?
You did mention that, and
because those are typically the two big things they leave.
I've been actually saving coins recently.
Okay.
Just because I've been using cash more, and then I keep quarters in my wallet, and the change I put in my dresser.
Yeah.
And one day I'm gonna be rich.
That's
but,
it. Yeah.
No, I don't. I will say this. One thing that you told me in the messages, I think I know who it was.
Yeah.
Because you said something about relatives or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like late June, July, I had a cancer scare. I thought I had
me too.
cancer. Yeah, crazy. Polycythemia. It's like a rare lung cancer.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh my God.
And they typically see it with smokers, but it's not unusual for non-smokers, which I told them, I said, I smoke cigars, I don't inhale,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's secondhand smoke. And they were like, no, this is like
Yeah,
people
like
were mad
chain smoking. Yeah.
Right.
And that really changed a lot of my outlook on life. And it was around that time that a little before that, my daughter, they thought she had a tumor on her brain.
Oh, jeez.
Oh God.
And I had 2 dreams with my Uncle Dave in. And I was talking with someone, and they said maybe it's him coming back and just being like, comfort, and saying, you know, I'm here while you're going through this. And it was around the time that I saw that, but I did not put any of it together.
Yeah.
So.
And they'll just show up. And sometimes it's just, I want to check on you. Sometimes it's I know you're having a hard time, I'm here to support you, because they're technically not allowed to intervene. They're allowed to support and they're allowed to love. And a lot of times and orbs are funny to catch sometimes too. Ooh, don't die.
Yeah.
Wrong
That
tube.
would be a podcast first.
Right? So yeah, basically my family was like, cool, you do you. My dad's side of the family, they kind of know that I'm interested in it, but they have no clue. They have no,
Right.
And they know, like my cousin Jay, that's the side of the family he's on. They know that him and I are a little different. They don't really get into it, and we don't get into it with them either because it makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, it's hard
just
to
a mutual respect.
basically.
Good.
Yeah. Now my dad. What's kind of weird about this is, you know, I never really thought of that side of the family as being particularly gifted, but my dad, he would get migraines, which really migraines are pretty common. I have migraines, part of the neurological thing. But his migraines, he would see auras. And he said the only time I ever saw them was with migraines. He says, and it's only people. He says, you know, people have, you know, their own auras, their own colors. And he said there was only ever one item ever that he's had migraines that he was like, well, that's weird, is this one particular time my brother, now my dad's been gone for about 18 years, almost 19 years now, but my baby brother, like he was 3. Do you ever glowworms? Do you remember the little glowworms? Well, he had one, but it didn't have the little tube thing with the batteries, so he would just like stick her in like this head like lock, and he would just carry this, and he called her baby. So he's like 2, 3 carrying this around. Would not go anywhere without this thing, would not sleep without this thing. If we left it at grandma's, we went back to grandma's when we got it. Like that was it. And my dad had said the only thing that ever gave off an aura that wasn't alive was that baby. Was my brother's my brother's thing. But I have a cousin on that side of the family that she gets migraines and sees auras as well. So I don't know if that's a gift or what that is, because migraines are, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just crossing the brain.
Like a side effect, maybe?
Right.
Yeah, because we think you get a headache, so then you're seeing things. Maybe you're seeing things, which is in turn giving you a headache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Josh, I mean, that's tough to follow. I mean, that's...
No, his
Let's see where we can go with yours.
We're going back to the religion thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think not even just religion, just spirituality in general, because I think that's something that I'm so curious about, because I just feel like so many people are brought up, this is how it goes, but no one talks about just, what do you guys believe? Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's so much, well, this is what I believe, and this is why you need to believe what I believe. So I'm just I'm open now.
My religious journey has been all over the board. I kind of think about it as like I went across the entire dial of the radio when it comes to religion. I grew up Catholic. That was where my fundamentals start, and it was like hardcore Catholic. Going through like catechism and going to the church, and like we were saying before about how it's guilt and fear, and that's like fire and brimstone coming from the top. So that was my childhood growing up. So yeah, and going back to seeing shadow people when I was young, that scared the hell out of me, because it's like the demons are coming to get me. Because if it was an angel, it'd be white, just like all the paintings that I see in the church and everything like that. So for me, seeing something scared the hell out of me in a couple of different ways, from a religious background and just as a child. So that was we were Catholic up until, I'm trying to think of whenever we moved. You're right.
10.
It was about 10. My parents moved into a different, like at 10 years old, I moved into a different house, and we moved like 30 miles away. And so it was a completely different church and everything like that. And my parents never really found a Catholic church they liked. But they liked the one that previously we went to. But this one, they just didn't really find a niche. So we ended up going around to different churches to try to find another flavor, I guess you could call it.
That's good.
So we did Protestant for a stint, and then we landed on Methodist for a long time. And around that time period, so my upbringing of religion and fire and brimstone and order and everything. Now, my parents divorced when I was 17, so there was tension as a teenager in the household, which is where I think was growing. And that's ultimately, when I think back to those handprints in my parents' house, I think that was a stain of my parents had a rocky relationship for my childhood. I mean, they did the best they could, but ultimately, here I am, like probably the handprints showed up probably 3 or 4 years before my parents actually did split. So the tension was there, is what I mean, and what I'm trying to say. So, religion is, it's from Catholic to Methodist, and then when I was a teenager, I became, because of that strain in my parents' relationship, and plus the whole religion in general, it was almost like if you take a rubber band and you stretch it out, and then you let go, and then it goes to the other side of the spectrum. So, like Kelly, as a teenager and young adult, I was very angry and atheist as well. And just saying, we're just a bunch of meat bags, nothing but worm food, and it doesn't matter. Like, what's it all matter? We're all just here by accident anyway, so what's it matter? And so, from there, I kind of did so we went through this whole, as Kelly and I were late teenagers, early 20s, angry individuals, had a lot of the same values, and we were in the same spot pretty much, and that's where a lot of our crossover is that we were both like, yep, we're just a couple of meat bags, so forget it. And from there, I'm trying to think of where I kind of felt that way for a long time, but then as Kelly started going into more spirituality, and I'm like, well, there's
It was right around the time that my dad got sick with cancer.
Yeah.
And that absolutely, his process of transitioning from the material to the non-material really changed some things for me in my head, in my heart. It was
So basically,
sorry, I still get a little emotional about it. It's
Right.
18 years, and I know he's close. I can, because I'm getting
Yeah.
this like.
Yeah. But it's from there, essentially, and just talking with Kelly and spirituality, and that kind of made me look into other things. And I eventually learned, what did I go to? Buddhism, Taoism. I looked into both of those. I felt like those were more, because I looked at like Catholicism and I thought of the Crusades and everything, and I'm like, here's all of this death and famine in the sake of God. Like, what the heck is that about? That doesn't seem very
Loving,
yeah. I mean, that's the opposite of. It's like, what, you don't like my religion? Well, either join it or die. That's essentially what they did. And so that's where I was kind of looking into like other philosophies and things like that. And I went down the rabbit hole of Buddhism and Taoism and the way of that. And that's not, I don't want to say that's necessarily a religion. It's more of a
philosophy.
It is.
Or like a life.
Yeah, way of life.
It is.
Yeah. It's really actually pretty beautiful.
I still love it. I've read the Book of Tao, the Tao Te Ching many times. It's a quick read, but it's one of those things you can read the same passage, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way about the Bible. And so I didn't really find a lot of direction in that, and then we ended up essentially talking with and working with Jehovah's Witness. And so that is not Kelly's favorite part.
The J-dubs.
If you want to know what real love looks like, it's
this.
this face every Sunday when that man showed up to go over the Bible. And let me tell you, commas are tricky little bastards, because you put them in a sentence anywhere in the Bible, it changes the whole context.
And that was kind
I'm
of
not a fan.
But that's a book that's been rewritten and translated how many times that
Edited, and
Right.
because the books were actually all separate.
Right.
The King James Bible is actually two squished together, because King James was like, oh shit, this Bible says the people can kick me out of here if I'm not doing a good job. We got to get rid of this. Let's,
right.
Yeah.
So I studied with them for a couple of years, and it was an order, and there was a verifiable, like, okay, this is what's coming out here. We can verify it by these passages right here. And I liked the logical connection to everything. That's what really drew me to that, because it was very logical. But then I started doing more research and getting into things of
the actual organization.
the organization and the upper levels of it. And you want to talk about like a corporate machine. Holy cow.
Oh, wow.
It's it's a whole different world. And
Would you equate it almost to like
It's a cult.
Scientology?
No. It's not Scientology. It is definitely based on the Bible. They use the King James version. However, there are some edits. For example, and this is one that Kelly was saying, a comma. Now, in the Bible, there is a portion of the Bible where Jesus is on the cross. He's being crucified, and he's next to a thief and a murderer, I believe. In basically the one guy, I don't remember if it was the thief or the murderer, basically he's crying and freaking out, and Jesus is like, don't worry about it, you'll be in the kingdom of heaven and soon. And so man, I'm having problems in the water.
Just more where that came from.
All right, another one of that, sir. But basically, depending on the version of the Bible that you look at, because, let me back up a second, because the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, in one aspect, whenever you have, I don't know how familiar you are with their particular teachings, but essentially for this conversation, they believe that at some point, the end of the world is going to happen. Like, we're all going to die, and then the end of the world is going to happen. Jesus is going to come down, and anybody that was previously dead is going to rise up, and all the wicked will be banished. And basically, Jesus will take everybody onto the promised land, essentially. Now, this is... they believe that you don't get to heaven or the promised land immediately. There's a waiting period until that event actually happens. So, in that passage
like
of the Bible...
purgatory?
No.
Kind of like you're asleep.
They basically just say, like, you're asleep.
Yeah.
And then just, like, whenever the apocalypse happens...
That's when you...
And
yes, I am familiar with that. So, you sleep until that point.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then you rise out of the grave. I don't know what happens exactly, but everybody's... I had a lot of questions for that time period, and all of them, they were just like, we'll figure it out when it happens, because we don't know how billions of people are going to survive on a planet that can't hold everyone. But we'll worry about that later. Anyway, so they take that particular passage from the Bible and they added a comma into it that said, essentially what it was like, it changed the meaning to what they needed. Just by adding a comma, just saying, don't fear, I will see you in the kingdom of heaven, comma, someday, or eventually, like another day, basically.
Yeah.
Later, essentially. So adding that comma added the pause and gave sustenance to their belief of this is what does. And so that part of it is like, okay, there's a little bit of edits there. And then if there are some scandalous stories that have come out in the news of some
Jehovah's Witness
people that are, similar to the Catholics, where there's like pedophilia and things like that, and how they deal with it. And I didn't particularly care for it.
Yeah, he actually was pretty upset about it.
For how they responded.
Yeah, basically, so their belief is that don't call the police.
You go to your elder.
You go to the elder, which... so basically the way you have like elders, which are... Think of them as like a manager in a store. Like a retail store. You have your employees, which would be like your congregation. Your elders, which would be...
your Sandusky, your Graham Spanier.
Yeah.
You're kind of like moving up the chain of command up until you hit corporate office, which is in New York State. Which that's where they kick out the Watchtower every week and all how their
the publications.
Everything is funneled from, I say corporate, but it's essentially
it is.
It is what it is. They're pushing out their message, what they want to do. So I'd questioned the brother. That's what they call everybody, brothers and sisters. And I said, so what about these situations where this person was convicted of molestation, or there was some type of, pedophilia happening, and the church, instead of calling the police and getting this guy arrested, They just shipped them off to a different congregation and said, well, you just can't come here anymore. Or they have the stupid rule, the rule of 2, where as long as 2 people can verify something happened, then that will happen. Like, it'll go before and it'll be tried. But if only it's 1 versus 1, it doesn't mean anything. You need 2 in order to actually prove something. Which, who in their mind is going to have another individual there if you're committing some type of nefarious act? Especially if you know that, okay, if it's a 1-on-1, then it's your word against mine and it goes nowhere. But if there's 2-on-1, then that's a different story.
What if it's 2-on-2? If there was a scenario
then that could go somewhere, because there's more than...
Okay.
Because as long as there was 2 people against either 1 or 4 or 17, it doesn't matter. It just...
So then they could compare stories and
Yeah.
you'd have more...
It's just...
Okay.
It was that kind of the way that they dealt with it, and there was... Essentially, their guidance is to not comply with any type of local police or anything like that. And it's even... There's a book. It's called Shepherd the Flock. And I got my hands on a copy of that book.
He's notorious for
getting
his hands on things.
Look, sometimes I sail the 7 seas of the internet, and that is how you end up with some things.
Mm-hmm.
So I sailed the
Beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
So I sailed the 7 seas to get this a copy of this book, which honestly wasn't that hard to take. But basically it talked about, because I was really questioning that, because I'm like, is this the individual like congregation? Is this particular, or is this like a well-known, like, this is our stance across the board? And essentially what it is yes, it's their stance across the board. Plus, if there's any type of authority figure that comes in, like the police come in or anybody asks for records of any kind, they're to not comply with the police and have them, the authorities, essentially contact the home office, per se, headquarters, per se. And that's just where I was thinking. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. So therefore, why would that be a problem here? Why do you need to...
Right.
Like...
And I feel like handling situations that way,
right,
to me, I'm not involved with them, so I feel like that's making them look bad.
Right.
Why wouldn't they just open up and say, "Oh yeah, here you go. Take the guy," you know?
Yeah, there's no...
it would look better on their part.
No. Their whole philosophy is, if there is somebody that is not respected in the congregation or something, they deal with it themselves, which is ship them off. And I'm just like, I'm not cool with that.
Right.
And I ended up telling the brother that I saw, I was like, look, it's not you. You've done everything perfect. You've followed every single line. I just don't like the way things are run. And plus, going through, there were certain rules and lines and things that they're an all or none. And I imagine, and that's a hard thing for me, is that a lot of religions are an all or none kind of category. It's like, you believe 100% or 0.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, we're just at the buffet picking and choosing.
Right. They want cookie cutter.
Right. Right. And they demanded, and I was pressured and demanded to follow 100% of all of their beliefs. And that if it came down to it, I would choose the church over my wife. And if the only way that I could remain with my wife is if she was also converted over. So that was kind of my job, was to convert her along with everything else. And it's like, they're like, oh, you can remain the same, but the church is going to be your choice.
Yeah. What's interesting too is during this particular time, whenever we were doing these meetings with the brother, I was actually very ill. I had been hospitalized. I was actually in the hospital for almost an entire month, and I needed 2 blood transfusions. And in the Jehovah's Witness and their beliefs, they do not take blood when needed. There are like synthetic things that, like if it's just my volume that's low, they can give me like a synthetic something that will help with volume. But that wasn't the case for me. Is like I was actually just I was anemic. I was in a I came close to death a couple times that month.
She would straight up need a blood transfusion. There's no way, it's either this or death.
Yeah, or
And,
you're just gonna, yeah.
we did it, and it's fine. And it happened during this time period. And that was something else I brought up because this was an event that was currently happening. And basically, what I was told was death would have been the answer because that's what God would have wanted because that was his plan.
Yeah.
And that their idea is that everybody's blood is sacred, and that by mixing blood, you could possibly introduce different allergies or different reactions to things.
I don't even think it was that. It was more religious than it.
I mean, that was on a science level, but their idea is your blood is your blood, and that's pure.
Sacred too.
Right. You don't want to mix blood with somebody else
Yeah.
because that's not right.
Well, in here too, what's interesting is I don't know if you've ever done any research into this. Is I'm O negative, and the Rh negative. You went a rabbit hole. Just be like, what does Rh negative? It is out of control. I'm O negative. I can only receive O negative. I can donate to anybody. Anybody can take O negative, but I can only take O negative. So yeah, whenever it came to the, hey, you need blood transfusions because you're low, on everything.
Right.
It was, okay, we either do this or I'm going to be in here for a while trying to rebuild and I was already so weak and so depleted from, two surgeries? Three?
Two or three, I can't remember
I don't
exactly.
remember at that time, but
Yeah.
I was already so depleted and so weak that it would have taken forever had I been able to make up for all that lost blood.
Even if she did survive.
Yeah, even if I... Yeah.
So, and basically, when we talked about it, and I was like, is this going to be a problem with the church or something like that? Are they going to shun me? And he's like, well, you're not officially a part of the church, so no, but if you were, yeah.
They would shun you. And not a little, cold shoulder, no,
you don't exist.
you don't exist.
You're not welcome here.
Yeah, you don't exist to them anymore.
If I were to show up to the church, and they'd be like, no, you got to keep going. It's how is that loving?
Because he chose my life over the church.
Well, that's the kind of the messed up thing is you have to believe everything, and even in the situation that my the brother that came out, he he had to disown one of his kids because they didn't believe, and it's that's messed up that you would have to disown one of your children to never speak to them again because of a difference in belief. That's all. And how is that loving? And that's where I was just like, this is messed up.
Yeah.
How is this this? And that's what really got me is is it mostly for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and there are other religions that are also try to convert people to as much as possible, spread the word. That's what Jesus said, and that's their whole philosophy is spread the word. Jesus says spread the word, so we're going to do that. Not just spread the word, but we're going to try to get you to convert. But I'm just thinking about that and just saying, it's kind of messed up that in order to say, quote unquote, get to the kingdom of heaven, you have to be a good disciple or a good individual to follow all these rules. But part of it is to convert people. So are you converting people because you love them and you want the same thing for them? Or are you doing it for your own self-preservation and your own, I need a good report card, so I'm going to do all this other stuff. So is it really kindness or selfishness? And that's really where I was at with it. And I was just thinking, I'm not going to do that. And then from there, essentially, I've just kind of been open to more spirituality. And that I realized that the Bible was written by man. And men are flawed. I also believe that God or an all creator came to every civilization, every group. Because you're going to find aligning stories, even back to Egyptians. There's stories of a virgin birth, and there's stories of walking on water, and just all these different things that are pretty much happen. So my philosophy, and this is my own just kind of ideas and thoughts of like, okay, so an omnipotent being or a god spirit came to all these civilizations, but this is how those people interpreted those things.
Exactly.
So it's where, you know, one person got, you know, this answer and this one person got this answer. I mean, it's just like an event that happens. You know, you could see a building fall and ask 10 people who witnessed the same thing what happened. You're going to get 10 different stories. And so that's exactly what I think happened to religion, is all these things happened, but these are the different stories that came out of it. And just because this was the flavor that came out of that civilization versus that flavor, I mean, it's just all too often religion is treated like a sports team, where it's like, yeah, you know, I love my sports team, and my sports team is better than yours. Like,
yeah, come join.
Right, right.
But I don't like sports. Like, yeah, organized religion is just not. It just was never for me. I also, what I didn't understand is, why do I have to go to you to talk to my creator?
Right.
Like, you know, and that's something. I just, there's so many things I have problems with about organized religion.
Right.
You know, like, if I want to talk to my mom, I'm not going to go to somebody else to talk to my mom. I'm going to go directly to her. I want a relationship with her, so I'm going to go directly with her and communicate direct. I don't want a middleman. I don't need a middleman.
Right.
As an artist, as a creator, no matter what it is I do, there is a tiny little piece of me in that creation, be it word, be it whatever, it doesn't matter. Yep. I have put a tiny little piece of myself into that creation. And even through all its flaws and the progress it took to get there, I still love it. You know, it still has a piece of me in it. I created it. That means it's part of me. And I feel that the God or the universe or whatever it is you want to identify it, that it's just, first off, I think it's so expansive that our tiny little human brains can't even comprehend the vastness of it. Right. But I don't feel that I need to go to somebody else for a connection to my creator. You know, I feel more connected to my creator in nature, with love, and that's love, you know, with Josh and I, that's with our nieces and our nephews and, you know, our parents and our family, but that's also with animals. It's also with nature. It's with, we're surrounded by so much love, and we often don't see it. Right. You know, I look at our little 5-acre plot on top of our hill, you know, it's not perfect. We've got rocks in the yard. We've got a crazy chicken gang that runs around thinks that they own the place, you know, like.
Right. Snapping their fingers, West Side Story.
Right. Yeah. The random emus running across the field. Oh my God, that was insane.
That's a whole separate story.
Right.
That's just.
Random emus. Hey, check out that emu in the field. We don't own emus. Surprise!
Well, that also goes back to Nick talking about, he said the mark of the maker. And it was like, that's really it.
Yeah.
I think just there's so much beauty in that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a way that I individually connect with my own spirituality and just meditation, and it's something that I'm getting more into and trying to branch out further and not be as afraid of, because it is scary, and it has been for a long time. And I remember it was with my stepdad when he passed away, and he was a large influence on my life. And my mom said, well, we're going to have a memorial thing for him to do this, and all the family's coming up and blah, blah, blah. And you can come up for it. And I thought about it for a while, and I landed on the answer of, like, I don't need it. I can connect with him whenever I want. Mm-hmm. That memorial service is for the living. It's not, I mean, yes, it is for him, but it's the
closure for the people.
Right.
It's the closure for those living. I have my closure. Right. And it's something that I don't, that was one that I feel like I didn't feel like I didn't lose him. Mm-hmm. It's just different. I can't just pick up a phone, but I can still talk to him.
Hey, I have 36 seconds left.
Wow.
But Thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I want to thank Anthony Menzia for the intro and outro music. And I want to thank Luke Means, who submitted a question. He's my Patreon right now.
Okay,
Nice.
cool.
So he funded the Red Bull for the episode and some other things.
Aw, thanks.
So,
Thanks.
yes, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
We'll have to do this again.
Yeah. I think that's all.
All right.
Cool.
4, 3, 2, 1. That's it.
Wow.
Whew, I do not. Earphones are weird.
How long was that?
Whew.